drones, and there were 500 drones that were sent, almost like a swarm drone attack in multiple locations. But Bharat has this Abhedya Suraksha Kavach, impenetrable, completely impenetrable security blanket, so to say, a missile defense shield. And this missile defense shield not just comprises the S-400 systems from Russia, but also the indigenous Akash system and much more. Before I get you more on this big story, I want to quickly cut across to my colleague Sandeep Puneethan for more on this. And Sandeep, Pakistan tried. It's not that Pakistan is not trying, it's not succeeding. Explain to us why, despite its best efforts, the Chinese technology, the weapons and systems that China has, why isn't Pakistan succeeding?
Well, Gaurav, the short answer for that is the Indian Air Force's IACCS, the Integrated Air Command and Control System, which is an air defense network that covers most of northern and western India. And this grid has been built by the Air Force over several decades. Now, what it is essentially comprises of, it's got a range of missiles in different capabilities, different missile systems, the centerpiece of which you mentioned is the S-400 missile system. It's a very, very capable missile system, and the Air Force was fully aware of its capabilities. They told the government this, and this is the reason that the Narendra Modi government, way back in 2018, Gaurav, took on the United States. They took on the risk of CATSA sanctions from the United States to buy 5 of these systems from the Russian Federation. And that bold decision, that diplomatic muscle that they showed with the United States, standing up to the US pressure, has now paid off such rich dividends 7 years later. This is a huge investment for our air defense network, Gaurav. You cannot underestimate the importance of that very, very significant decision we took 7 years back. Of course, there are other components to the IACCS, which is basically a large grid. You have something called the RASP, the RASP, which is a rapidly emerging air situation picture, which connects all airborne and ground-based sensors to give a complete 360-degree picture of the entire airspace, the battle space around India, the northern and western parts of India. So the Air Force controllers on the ground can, in one fell swoop, they can look at the entire picture, down that entire location, that 3,000 kilometer border, right from Jammu and Kashmir down to Gujarat. And, you know, they have a full air situation picture, and then they can start allocating resources, which missile is going to tackle which threat. And in this case, Gaurav, the drones that the Pakistanis have attacked us with, 500 drones, most of them low-cost, drones. I mean, they're literally expendable drones. They just sent it across for propaganda purposes, I would think.
Or, you know, I think Pakistan is evil as a state, and especially the army wouldn't trust them. In fact, there are many in the security apparatus in India who say several things about Pakistan, which I will tell some of you offline, because online, when they say you see somebody who's wearing a Pakistan Army uniform and a snake, you know who's to be taken down first.
Well, the mask has certainly fallen off the Pakistan military and its support for terrorism, Gaurav, and that is something that we've seen in the last 48 hours, where it's unprecedented, a military funeral for a terrorist, and you have soldiers standing side by side with terrorists, designated terrorists. What is the message that Pakistan is sending out to the world?
As you very rightly pointed out, the mask is off. There's breaking news coming in, and I want to get you details of the big story. We will show you on camera how India downed Pakistan's swarm drone attack. This is an India Today exclusive report. You're watching real time how India saw the threat coming in and how Pakistan's attack was neutralized. These are those images that show you. This is an India Today exclusive. An Indian Army and Air Force together thwarted the April 8 drone strike by Pakistan with what is being described as one of the most successful systems, the L-70, the Akash system, the Zu-23 system. And this is like a coordinated response from the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force. Jointmanship worked so perfectly. The drone attack happened, and in a timely manner. You know, there's an old saying, in the armed forces, being forewarned is being forearmed. 20 soft kills, according to the army, on the 8th of May. And look at the timing also visible there, 8 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. That is where Pakistan carried out raids with 500 small unmanned aerial vehicles in 24 cities from Jammu and Kashmir, across Punjab, across Rajasthan to Gujarat in India. And that entire effort, it just failed. It just failed because India was so much better prepared. And I want to bring in India Today's ace defense correspondent Shivani Sharma, who joins me on this broadcast. Shivani, bring us details. Your sources have given you these images. You've accessed these images. The big picture that emerges, Shivani.
Gaurav, these are the exclusive images of the swarm drone attack that was directed towards India in several cities, more than 24 cities and locations in India yesterday night between 8:30 and 11:30. The timelines are also very specific right after when sirens were sounded in Jammu, and we saw how these projectiles were moving in different locations, and the air defense system of the country thwarted all these swarm drones. So this was a big offense that Pakistan had attempted, and India neutralized the threat within no time, Gaurav. And this is how Pakistan's swarm drones and 500, not 2, not 3, but 500 swarm drones in different locations across the western border, across the states, right from Jammu and Kashmir to Punjab to Rajasthan. They were all directed towards the locations of these cities, not only the military locations, but also where the people are residing, the residents. So the civilian population was also on target, but the air defense system, which is a combination of multiple assets, starting from the S-400 to the Akash missiles, the Pichora missiles, the unarmed counter air defense systems. So all this was in place. This multiple layered air defense system neutralized the threat in no time, and this was again a failed attempt by Pakistan, the misadventure that was dealt with strongly by India. Gaurav.
Okay, and Shivani, the systems, the fact that the army and the air force operate together seamlessly, how are they explaining this Pakistani, or what sources are saying at least some of these drones that the Pakistanis sent were unarmed? Were they testing our defenses, or were they making us spend very expensive ammunition in neutralizing worthless drones, and the real attack perhaps would follow later?
Gaurav, this seems to be a panic action from Pakistan, a very bad strategically planned action that was failed within no time. And it now seems that they've been testing our shield over the skies. That's what we can only say, because all of these attempts have been thwarted within no time. This is happening across states, Gaurav. This is Jammu and Kashmir, the Jammu airport, the Srinagar airport, Punjab, major defense establishments were also, remember before yesterday there was an attempt by Pakistan the prior night also following the Operation Sindoor that was also thwarted by by India, and all the Pakistani drones were brought down. They all landed in their debris on Indian soil. This was the second attempt, mind you, that happened yesterday evening starting 8:30 onwards, that kept on in various locations right from Rajasthan's Jaisalmer to Jammu airport, Jammu city, Pura sector and many other sectors in Srinagar also, in Amritsar also. So all these swarm attacks that
For a moment, I want to bring in Sandeep Punithan on these images that you've just shared with us. The quadcopters and rather cheap-looking Chinese quadcopters. Isn't this, Sandeep? Why would Pakistan send this? And is it actually, one, testing our defenses, two, making us poof off very expensive ammunition to take down this?
Absolutely, Gaurav. Those 2 points that you mentioned, I just want to add a third to that. This is possibly a propaganda move by Pakistan. They want to tell their citizens, look, we've attacked India in 500 different locations and we've sent all of these, drones and all that. But the visuals that we are seeing on screen right now suggest a very different picture. They've used cheap Chinese drones. And as you mentioned rightly, that this is to spoof our system, to force us to expend ammunition. But what they don't realize is that we have plenty of ammunition. There's a lots more where that came from. But, interesting, Gaurav, on the left side, you're looking at a display of possibly what I think is the display unit of the L-70 gun. That's our primary air defense gun, Gaurav. It's been in service since independence. It's a gun that was built in the 1940s. It's a Swedish design gun, which we have manufactured indigenously. We have over 1,000 of those guns. And this has been upgraded, Gaurav. It's been brought into the 21st century by Bharat Electronics Limited. It's one of our frontline platforms in the fight against swarm drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, missiles and aircraft, of course. It's a very, very capable system. As you can see, it's been, it's been made into a radar-directed gun now. From that manual gun, the hydraulics have been replaced by all-electric drives. It's a very sophisticated platform, and
which
it's now
just makes it all the more better. So, if it's no longer hydraulic, in high altitude, it's easier. In the desert area, it's easier. Less oil, less sand getting into the system.
Absolutely.
And all of that makes it so much better.
It's all silent, Gaurav.
And it's completely silent.
It's silent, it's noiseless, and it's very effective. It's devastating. It's got a range of something like 4 to 5 kilometers, and it can fire something like 200 shells per minute. It's a very, very lethal weapon, and it's, it's actually in this upgraded avatar. We've saved a lot of money by doing this, and it's a tribute to our engineers at Bharat Electronics Limited who've done this over the last couple of years. And this is, Second World War technology which has been upgraded, and now it is in its final avatar. You're seeing the proof of the pudding. That's in the eating, and the eating is right in front of your eyes, Gaurav.
You know what I want our viewers to know? When people say India is not well defended, when people say Pakistan is better off, I don't know where they get that. Their information from. And look at India's point defense, from a manpad, a shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile and IGLA, to the S-400 system. Take a look at some of the indigenous components that are coming in, and Sandeep, elaborate on it. So, yes, we also have the Zu-23, those Second World War guns. Anyways, all of us who've read Commando comics would know a lot about Achtung, tak, 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 tak is what we read in those comics. But we've seen them in action. I've seen them in action.
There
brought down. They all.
So important. Yes, it's slow. Yes, it's time consuming and we need to improve. Our scientists need to improve. Our engineers need to improve. The delivery has to be there. Scientists need to improve, our engineers need to improve, the delivery has to be there, it has to be flawless, but there is no alternative to Make in India.
There's no alternative indeed, Gaurav. You hit the nail on the head. If you want to be a power of some standing, you have to build your own missile systems, you have to build your own defense capabilities. Otherwise, like you correctly pointed out, you are at the mercy of your foreign suppliers. They will probably say, sell you the weapons. They might not sell you the weapons. They will decide the schedule for the delivery of the components and parts and all that. And you have to keep running back to them. And this is how big countries control narratives. They control smaller countries by this. And what you're actually doing, Gaurav, when you import weapons, you are actually importing security. And this is something that you cannot compromise on. You can't compromise on your own national security. And that is the reason there is no alternative but to develop your own weapon systems.
Atmanirbhar Bharat is essential. Remember, look at Pakistan, for example. Pakistan is forced to do a sajda to China and kowtow. Kowtow is the word, the Chinese word. Sajda is the Pakistani word. But that is what Pakistan does. Sometimes it does a sajda to the United States of America. Sometimes it does a sajda to China. Sometimes it will do a sajda to anybody else. But all it will do is a sajda. I mean, they're permanently on their knees, like right now, in front of the International Monetary Fund.
They've shifted from one foreign supplier to another one. They've moved from the United States towards China. 80% of their recent arms imports, Gaurav, are of Chinese origin. So the Chinese, again, are going to be holding the screws on Pakistan. They are going to tell them what to do. They are going to tell them the kind of weapons that they get. They will decide the caliber, the characteristics, the marks, all of that. This is a capability that you get when you develop your own missile system. Nobody tells you what you want, what you need.
For a moment, as we look at the Pakistani weapons and why Pakistani weapons failed and the Indian weapons, why they're doing so good, it's actually a combination that India has. And it's amazing when you look at these Chinese HQ-16, for example, based on the S-300s of Russia, remade by China, sold the LV-80 version, sold to Pakistan.
Yes.
So their foreign version, anyway, I believe, is subpar.
Is subpar. It would be definitely 1 or 2 levels below what the Chinese forces use. So that's the game that big countries play. They will never sell top-of-the-line weapons of their own to other countries. They will always sell degraded versions of that. They don't want their weapons to be used, against themselves. So that is the kind of things that they do when they handle weapons exports. But this is a lesson for us as well, Gaurav. The Chinese, look at the Chinese. In the last 20 or 25 years, they've gone from importing a lot of Russian hardware to now copying it, duplicating it, and now exporting them.
Yes.
In the face of global opposition and, of course, competing against Russian systems
this
themselves.
image that we see on our television screens right now, the TL-15 long-range air-to-air missile.
Gaurav, you are looking at one of the biggest intelligence coup in several years. Now, the United States, for one, would pay for the weight in gold for that missile that the Punjab policemen are handling over there. That's a PL-15, very long-range Chinese missile. It's rarely been seen in public. It's possibly been used, fired for the first time, and this is something that I can confirm that our scientists are looking at it very closely right now. They're examining its characteristics. This is a missile that has literally emerged from behind the
Yes.
bamboo curtain, Gaurav, and this has been supplied to Pakistan very recently as tensions began ratcheting up. It's part of the Pakistan Air Force.
But it has an amazing range,
fleet of-
almost 200 kilometers.
It's believed to have a range of something like 200 kilometers, and I'm sure our scientists, our DRDO scientists, are studying the characteristics of this weapon even as we speak. They must be taking it apart to try and understand its characteristics and how it matches against our own indigenous DRDO long-range
Yes.
air-to-air missile, the Astra.
Astra. Yeah, Astra. I also want to understand from you right now, the Chinese commanders would probably be slapping the Pakistani Air Force for letting go of a PL-15 like this.
Absolutely, Gaurav.
Because
I mean,
the Chinese secrets are out in the open.
Chinese secrets are out in the open, and Gaurav, I very well see the PL-15 being the top of the agenda in India-US talks. In the next round of defense dialogue, the United States would ask to see these missiles because let's not forget, Gaurav, these are the kind of missiles that the United States is going to be facing if a conflict were to break out over Taiwan.
Yeah.
US fighters are going to be tracked and picked up by and targeted by missiles like the PL-15. I'm sure the United States would want to have a very, very close look at the PL-15. In fact, forget the United
States. So from the Guam
States.
base, there's a C-130J that will be landing.
Possibly a C-17, Gaurav.
Or a C-17.
Which would already be here, and you would have experts queuing up to study this missile. It's a very, very enigmatic missile. We've seen mock-ups of it, we've seen dummies of it in arms exhibitions, but we've never seen an actual missile being fired in combat, and that is an intelligence windfall, Gaurav.
So, before I bring in our reporters and our guests, and as we are waiting for the briefing of Operation Sindoor by the Ministry of External Affairs and Defense, I want to understand, what is your assessment of the Chinese equipment? Hasn't it proven to be rather subpar, whether it is the equivalent of their S-300s or the longer range air defense systems? They've all been rather subpar, or the JF-17 Thunders or the J-10Cs.
Well, the Chinese weapons, Gaurav, let's face it, they are a generation below the Russian systems. They've reverse engineered a whole lot of Russian systems. We know all of that. But the important thing is that both the J-10s and the J-17s use Russian engines.
Yes.
Right? And that is something, they use the same engines, the RD-33 that's used by the MiG-29, for instance. So that's, again, a case of China being dependent on Russia for fighter jet engines. So, I mean, these are...
But, if we were to talk about the JF-17 Thunders,
yes.
Chinese don't use them themselves.
No.
They found them subpar, so they palmed it off to Pakistan.
So they palmed it off to the Pakistanis because this is the kind of jet that the Pakistanis want to replace their variants of the MiG-21. So, the JF-17s would be very similar to our light combat aircraft, the LCA Tejas, which we've been developing from the 1980s and which is now coming in the numbers that we want it to replace all of the MiG-21s, in fact. So this would be very similar to our LCA. But, like you correctly pointed out, the fact that it's not good enough to enter PLA service.
It's not good enough for PLA.
Not good
off
for the
to the Pakistanis. The
and it's a cheap export option for a number of air forces.
African countries are
African countries, Bangladesh is looking at it, possibly Sri Lanka as well.
Okay. So apart from Africa, you have two neighbors of ours that may look at this, but after they've seen the subpar performance, and I'm told that two of them have been lost. We're waiting for an official confirmation whether that comes or not. What we're also looking at is the J-10C, the multi-role fighter jet, again was said to be better.
Right.
The latest version with the PL-15s, and I believe the PL-15s air-to-air missiles now come with an extended range beyond 200 kilometers.
Beyond 200 kilometers, that's what we've been told. That's again another enigmatic missile. We haven't seen that missile being used in combat yet, Gaurav. But the J-10 that you're seeing on screen right now is a very interesting aircraft. It has a history. It's actually based on an Israeli design called the Lavi. Now, the Lavi itself was an Israeli copy of the F-16 Fighting Falcon, and that is something that the Chinese copied, and now they've sold it to the Pakistanis 3 years ago, 2022 to be precise. And the Pakistan Air Force acquired these only to kind of achieve parity with India. When our Rafale started being delivered, it was a kind of a propaganda move for them to say that now we've acquired a new aircraft that we believe is going to be equal or better than the Rafale. Of course, that's completely untrue because the Rafale can completely outclass the J-10. There is nothing literally in the subcontinent that can match, a Rafale. No fourth or 4.5 generation aircraft can beat the Rafale.
I want to quickly bring in Shivani Sharma into this conversation once again because Shivani, you were directly in the line of fire with a number of our reporters across from Jammu and Kashmir, down Punjab, through Rajasthan till Gujarat. But is the situation as bad right now? What is the bigger picture that you're picking up?
Gaurav, since morning there has no shelling that has been reported at the line of control. The severe shelling that continued through the night stopped over the day. But we saw the evacuations happening. People are still under tension and worry. They are under fear that what would happen tonight because the things are quite uncertain. And this uncertainty is causing a lot of tension to the people because line of control is there where the ceasefire violations have been happening since last, especially the artillery guns have been firing upon the civilians in these areas. So there is tension. People are hoping and praying that the things settle down fast. There should be no escalation from Pakistan's side because if it happens, then India will also respond forcefully. And further, then that what we are calling it, an escalation ladder will go high and severely impact, especially the people who are on line of control because ceasefire violations are continuing from Pakistan and that too with full intensity.
And they indeed are. When we talk about the escalation ladder, let's look at what's been happening ever since India struck terror central Pakistan's Punjab province at Murid Ke, at Bahawalpur, in Sialkot, along with other locations in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. I want to understand from you, we struck multiple locations, our missiles went through. Does that completely expose Pakistan's air defense system? Point one. Next day, when they attempted to strike, attempts failed. When we hit back, we took down some of their missile defense systems, also struck places close to GHQ in Rawalpindi, struck Lahore, struck several other locations. Again, when last night they tried, we will hear officially from the government in just about a minute plus. Their attempts did not succeed, though they tried 26 different locations with 500 drones. Will they escalate? Are we going up the escalation ladder? Or is this some kind of a situation where they are saying they're fighting back? It does appear to be a feeble fight back unless their real fight back happens only now.
Well, Gaurav, a feeble fight back is quite possible because what has happened in the last 48 hours has completely spooked the Pakistan military. They did not wargame the possibility of such swift Indian retaliation. First Operation Sindoor, the first phase, then the second phase of Operation Sindoor. And the government doesn't seem to be backing down in the face of Pakistan's threats. And this is, as we were discussing, Gaurav, this appears to be retribution for 25 years of Pakistan using terrorism as an instrument of state policy. They're not just being called out only for Pahalgam, Gaurav. They're being called out for every single major sensational terror attack that the Pakistan military has carried out against Indian targets, against Indian civilians, massacring Indian civilians in Mumbai, in Pahalgam, in Jammu and Kashmir, in Gujarat, in Uttar Pradesh, all across India. Now is the time for payback. And this is what has spooked the Pakistan military.
What gives us the impression that the Pakistan army is spooked and it's not lulling us into thinking that they're not retaliating? We relax and suddenly, because Pakistan, at least their army or their military jihad complex, that's evil. This morning, there was an infiltration attempt. 7 Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists were killed at Samba. So, I don't think either you or I, and remember, Sandeep is from Mumbai, 1993 blast, 257 people were killed. 2006 blast, 200 people were killed. 26/11, another 166 people were killed. Pakistani terror didn't stop even after that. That David Coleman Headley and Tawar Hussain Rana came back again because they wanted to bleed India again. Zaveri Bazaar was struck again. Again, there were terror attacks, not just in Mumbai, but also a German bakery in Pune. You recall 57 people were killed in the Ahmedabad blast. So, I don't trust the Pakistanis. I'm sure you don't trust the Pakistani military jihad complex. What makes you think that they will not hit us or try to hit us again?
Well, if they try to hit us again, Gaurav, good luck to them, because the response and retaliation is going to be instantaneous. Because if you look at it now, Gaurav, the entire 3,000-kilometer border with Pakistan is active. Our aircraft are up in the air, our AWACS are up in the air, our IACCS is active, our warships are out at sea in the North Arabian Sea, just south of Pakistan's most vulnerable soft corner, which is their sea link, their maritime supply routes, their maritime juggler that brings in all of their imports, which brings in all of their energy supplies, Gaurav. They need 500,000 barrels of oil a day, and all of that is transported via the sea. And now, Gaurav, they have 4 neighbors. They have hostile relations with 3 of their 4 neighbors. They are encircled in a way, and I'm sure the Pakistan military, this is something that they had in war game for. And now we have ratcheted up the escalation ladder, and now they possibly want to look for an escape route. They want to tell their citizens, look, we've done the best that we could.
Coming in from the Ministry of External Affairs, the Foreign Secretary, Colonel Qureshi, Wing Commander Weaponising Singh, they are both there, and it's about to start.
Do switch off your mobile phones before I begin. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to this press briefing by Foreign Secretary Shri Vikram Misri on the ongoing developments around Operation Sindoor. We are also joined by Colonel Sophia Qureshi and Wing Commander Weaponising Singh. With that, I hand over the floor to Foreign Secretary. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Randeep. नमस्कार, गुड आफ्टरनून, आप सबका स्वागत है। और मैं सबसे पहले अनुरोध करूंगा कर्नल सोफिया कुरैशी से कि वो आपको आज तड़के सवेरे से हुई घटनाओं से अवगत कराएं। कर्नल कुरैशी।
थैंक यू सर। नमस्कार। 8 से 9 मई 2025 की मध्य रात्रि को पाकिस्तानी सेना ने सैन्य बुनियादी ढांचे को निशाना बनाने के इरादे से पूरी पश्चिमी सेना पर भारतीय वायु क्षेत्र का कई बार उल्लंघन किया। यही नहीं, बल्कि पाकिस्तानी सेना ने नियंत्रण रेखा पर भारी कैलिबर वाले हथियारों से गोलीबारी भी की। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सीमा और नियंत्रण रेखा पर लेह से लेकर सरक्रीक तक 36 स्थानों पर 300 से 400 लगभग ड्रोनों का इस्तेमाल घुसपैठ का प्रयास करने के लिए किया गया। भारतीय सशस्त्र बलों ने काइनेटिक व नॉन काइनेटिक साधनों का उपयोग करके इनमें से कई ड्रोन्स को मार गिराया। इतने बड़े पैमाने पर हवाई घुसपैठों का संभावित उद्देश्य वायु रक्षा प्रणालियों का परीक्षण करना और खुफिया जानकारी इकट्ठा करना था। ड्रोन के मलबे की फोरेंसिक जांच की जा रही है। प्रारंभिक रिपोर्ट्स से पता चलता है कि वे तुर्की के असीस गार्ड सोंगर ड्रोन्स हैं। इसके उपरांत रात में पाकिस्तान के एक सशस्त्र यूएवी ने भटिंडा सैन्य स्टेशन को निशाना बनाने की कोशिश भी की, जिसे पकड़ा गया और उसे निष्क्रिय कर दिया गया। पाकिस्तानी हमले के जवाब में पाकिस्तान में 4 हवाई रक्षा स्थलों पर सशस्त्र ड्रोन्स लॉन्च किए गए। इनमें से एक ड्रोन एडी रडार को नष्ट करने में सक्षम रहा। पाकिस्तान ने जम्मू कश्मीर के तंगधार, उरी, पुंछ, मेंढर, राजौरी, अखनूर और उधमपुर में भारी कैलिबर आर्टिलरी गन और सशस्त्र ड्रोन्स का उपयोग करके नियंत्रण रेखा के पार गोलीबारी भी की, जिसके परिणाम स्वरूप भारतीय सेना के कुछ जवान हताहत हुए और घायल हुए। भारतीय जवाबी कार्रवाई में पाकिस्तानी सेना को भी बड़ा नुकसान पहुंचाया गया। इसके अलावा पाकिस्तान का गैर जिम्मेदाराना व्यवहार फिर से सामने आया। 7 मई 2025 को रात 8:30 बजे एक असफल अकारण ड्रोन और मिसाइल हमला करने के बावजूद पाकिस्तान ने अपना नागरिक हवाई क्षेत्र बंद नहीं किया। पाकिस्तान अपने नागरिक विमानों को ढाल के रूप में इस्तेमाल कर रहा है, जबकि उसे अच्छी तरह से पता है कि भारत पर उसके हमले से हवाई रक्षा की तीव्र प्रतिक्रिया होगी। यह भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सीमा के पास उड़ान भरने वाले अंतर्राष्ट्रीय उड़ानों सहित नागरिक विमानों के लिए सुरक्षित नहीं है। यहाँ स्क्रीन शॉट में पंजाब सेक्टर में हाई एयर डिफेंस अलर्ट स्थिति के दौरान एप्लीकेशन फ्लाइट रडार 24 का डेटा दिखाया गया है। जैसा कि आप देख रहे हैं यहाँ पर भारतीय पक्ष का हवाई क्षेत्र घोषित बंद के कारण नागरिक हवाई यातायात से पूरी तरह से रहित है। कराची और लाहौर के बीच के हवाई अड्डे मार्ग पर नागरिक एयरलाइंस उड़ान भर रही है। हाईलाइट किया गया है विमान फ्लाइनेस एविएशन का एयरबस 320, जैसा कि आप यहाँ देख रहे हैं, जो कि शाम को 5:50 बजे दमम से शुरू हुआ और रात को 9:10 बजे लाहौर में उतरा। ये सारा डिटेल्स आप यहाँ देख रहे हैं, ये डिटेल्स यहाँ लिखा हुआ है। कैन यू सी दिस? भारतीय वायुसेना ने अपनी प्रतिक्रिया में काफी संयम दिखाया और इस प्रकार अंतर्राष्ट्रीय नागरिक विमान सेवा की सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित की। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
Good afternoon to you all. On the intervening night of 8th-9th May 2025, Pakistan military carry out multiple violations of Indian airspace along the entire western border with an intent to target military infrastructure. Pakistan military also resorted to firing of heavy caliber weapons along the line of control. Along the international border and line of control, drone intrusions were attempted from Leh to Sir Creek at 36 locations with approximately 300 to 400 drones. Indian Armed Forces brought down a number of these drones using kinetic and non-kinetic means. The possible purpose of these large-scale aerial intrusions were to test the AD systems and gather intelligence. Forensic examination of the drone debris is being undertaken. Preliminary reports suggest them to be of Aziz Guard Songa drone of Turkey. Later in the night, an armed UAV of Pakistan attempted to target Bhatinda military station, which was detected and neutralized. In response to the Pakistani attack, armed drones were launched at 4 air defense sites in Pakistan. One of the drones was able to destroy an AD radar. Pakistan also carried out artillery shelling across the line of control using heavy caliber artillery guns and armed drones at Sangdhar, Uri, Poonch, Mendhar, Rajouri, Akhnur and Udhampur in Jammu and Kashmir area, which resulted in some losses and injuries to Indian Army personnel. Pakistan Army also suffered major losses in Indian retaliatory fire. Additionally, Pakistan's irresponsible behavior again came to fore. Pakistan did not close its civil airspace despite it launching a failed unprovoked drone and missile attack on 7th May at 8:30 hours in the evening. Pakistan is using civil airliners as a shield, knowing fully well that its attack on India would elicit a swift air defense response. This is not safe for the unsuspecting civil airliners, including the international flights which were flying near IB between India and Pakistan. The screenshot we just showed and we shall share with you, it shows the data of the application Flight Radar 24 during a high air defense alert situation in the Punjab sector. As you have seen, the airspace on the Indian side is absolutely devoid of civil air traffic due to our declared closure. However, there are civil airlines flying the air route between Karachi and Lahore. Amongst the other civil aircraft that you can see, we have highlighted an aircraft which is Airbus 320 of Flynas Aviation, which was originated from Dammam at 1750 hours and landed later at Lahore at 2110 hours in the night. Indian Air Force demonstrated considerable restraint in its response, thus ensuring safety of international civil carriers.
Thank you. A few points to share in addition. कल रात की पाकिस्तानी सेना की कायरतापूर्ण गतिविधियों से आपको कुरैशी और विंग कमांडर सिंह ने पहले ही अवगत करा दिया गया है. These provocative and escalatory actions that were taken by Pakistan last night were targeted at Indian cities and civilian infrastructure in addition to some military targets. The Indian Armed Forces responded proportionately, adequately and responsibly. ये जो हमले हुए कल रात को भारतीय सैन्य इकाइयों ने पर्याप्त रूप से और एक जिम्मेदाराना रुख अपनाते हुए हरकतों का उत्तर दिया. What I want to underline is that the official and blatantly farcical denial of these attacks that Pakistan carried out by the Pakistani state machinery is yet another example of their duplicity and the new depths that they are plumbing in their quest for disinformation. The other point in the same vein is Pakistani claims that they did not target or attack any religious places. You would recall that yesterday I shared with you an incident related to the attack on a Gurdwara in Punch. Instead of owning up to these attacks, Pakistan made the preposterous and outrageous claim that it was the Indian Armed Forces and the Indian Air Force that was targeting cities like Amritsar and trying to put the blame on Pakistan. This is nothing but a desperate attempt by Pakistan to disown its acts of aggression. It is also true to type in its effort to deceive and mislead the world. It will not succeed. The Gurdwara in Punch in particular was attacked by Pakistan, and some local members of the Sikh community, including a Ragi of the Gurdwara, lost their lives in this incident, as I shared yesterday. TV पर आप इस हमले के चित्र देख सकते हैं. In addition, that we would attack our own cities is the kind of deranged fantasy that only the Pakistani state can come up with. Perhaps they do it because they are well versed in such action, as their history would show. The last point I wanted to make this evening is again this disinformation that is coming from Pakistan about India targeting the Nankana Sahib Gurdwara through a drone attack. This is again yet another blatant lie and part of Pakistan's disinformation campaign. As we saw in the Pahalgam attack, Pakistan is again trying desperately to impart a communal hue to the situation with an intention to create discord. Again, we are not surprised. India's steadfast unity in itself is a challenge to Pakistan. Let me stop there. I have time only for a few questions and be happy to try and answer them.
The first I call Siddharth. Siddharth, please. Hi, sir. I'm Siddharth from Beyond. So this way. Siddharth, behind, please.
The other Siddhant.
Yes. Hi, sir. I'm Siddharth from CNN News 18. Sir, I only want to know from you the status of Kartarpur corridor. Is it open or not? You can.
I think you're all aware of the situation along the entire India-Pakistan border and the areas around the line of control. in view of the existing security scenario, the services of the Kartarpur Sahib corridor have been suspended till further directions. We'll update you as and when there is a change in the situation.
You have a question here, Rishabh?
So, good evening, Rishabh from Times Now. So you spoke about religious places being hit in Jammu. There's another religious place which is Carmelite Nun church that has been hit. What do you have to say about it? If you can explain it?
Yeah, actually, we do have some information about this extremely regrettable and condemnable incident during heavy shelling across the line of control in the early morning of 7th May. A shell fired from Pakistan landed just behind the Christ School run by the Carmelites of Mary Immaculate congregation in Punjab. Tragically, the shell fired from Pakistan hit the home of 2 students of the Christ School. Both students unfortunately lost their lives and their parents were severely injured. Another Pakistani shell struck a Christian convent of nuns belonging to the congregation of the Mother of Carmel, damaging water tanks and destroying solar panel infrastructure. Several priests, nuns, school staff, and local residents took refuge in an underground hall beneath the Christ School during the shelling by Pakistan. The school happened to be closed at the time, fortunately. Otherwise, more losses would have occurred. Again, we have seen the Pakistani side targeting and shelling places of worship with a particular design. This includes gurdwaras, these convents and temples. This is a new low even for Pakistan.
You have a question here, right?
सर प्रणय उपाध्याय अमर जाल से सर कल आपने इसी पोडियम से पाकिस्तान के आईएमएफ बेलआउट को लेकर और इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी को लेकर जो टिप्पणी की थी उसकी पाकिस्तान में काफी तीखी प्रतिक्रिया भी आई और उसके बाद हमने देखा कि पाकिस्तान की तरफ से किस तरीके से लेह से लेकर भुज तक पूरी बॉर्डर के ऊपर जो इन्वेजन था वो किया गया। मौजूदा सिचुएशन के अंदर पाकिस्तान के बेलआउट पैकेज को लेकर और पाकिस्तान के अटेम्प्ट्स को लेकर आपका क्या असेसमेंट है? और दूसरा ये भी जानना चाहेंगे कि पाकिस्तान की तरफ से ये जो अटेम्प्ट किया गया था उसका भारत ने अभी तक उस तरीके का कोई जवाब नहीं दिया गया है, तो क्या भारत इसका जवाब देगा जो कार्रवाई हुई है बीते 24 घंटों में?
देखिए प्रणय, जहाँ तक इंडस वाटर्स ट्रीटी का सवाल है, मैंने कल विस्तार से उसके बारे में इसकी चर्चा की है. इंडस वाटर्स ट्रीटी इज़ इन अबेयंस and as such I have nothing further to add to the decision that was announced by the Cabinet Committee on Security. जहाँ तक IMF bailout का सवाल है, आपको ज्ञान होगा कि IMF की आज मीटिंग हो रही है. हम वहाँ पे अपना पक्ष रखेंगे और जो हमारा मत है इन चीज़ों को लेके वहाँ पे साझा करेंगे दूसरे मेंबर्स के साथ. ये बोर्ड पे निर्भर है कि वहाँ पे क्या निर्णय होता है. और जहाँ तक जो कार्रवाई हुई है उसका जवाब देने का जो आपने जो प्रश्न उठाया है, जो आज ब्रीफिंग हुई है, जो आपको सूचना मिली है, मैंने भी कहा है कि जो आज सवेरे तड़के सवेरे जो गतिविधियाँ हुई, भारत ने उनका एक जिम्मेदाराना पूर्ण तरीके से और एक पर्याप्त तरीके से उसका जवाब दे दिया है.
Hi sir, Siddhant from Beyond. Sir, the External Affairs Minister has spoken to many of his counterparts around the world. Yesterday he spoke to the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So what were the key areas of conversations during that call?
Yes, the minister had a conversation with the US Secretary of State. As you can imagine, the focus of discussions was the terrorist attack in Pahalgam and the response that India mounted after that on the 7th of May. The Secretary of State shared his thoughts on these developments with the minister. The minister deeply appreciated the US's commitment to work with India in the fight against terrorism, and he also underlined the targeted measures that India had taken in connection with Sindoor. The minister also underlined that India would firmly counter any attempts at escalation from there. But in follow-up to that, as you are aware, there have been a number of other conversations. The minister had a conversation with the UK Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, today. There too, the discussion centered around countering terrorism, for which there must be zero tolerance. And I understand just a short while ago, the External Affairs Minister has also spoken to the Foreign Minister of Norway, Espen Barth Eide, which was also focused on recent developments stemming from the terrorist act in Pahalgam.
One last question, Sudeep.
Sir, once again, thank you for doing this. Ranjan from Bloomberg. Once again, India had struck Bahawalpur the other day, which is also connected with the murder of one of us journalists, Daniel Pearl. If you could give us an understanding of what exactly are the reports that you're getting.
You're right. Bahawalpur is the headquarters of the Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist group that is proscribed by the United Nations. Its leader, Maulana Masood Azhar, is a proscribed individual. It is, you brought up the connection with the tragic death or killing of Daniel Pearl of the Wall Street Journal. The Jaish-e-Mohammed was in some way directly or indirectly responsible for the death of Daniel Pearl. But the real connection is through Ahmed Omar Saeed Sheikh, the British Pakistani jihadi who was held in India but was finally released in 2000, and he was the person who lured Daniel Pearl to his eventually leading to his murder. So these are all obviously connected figures, connected individuals, connected institutions, and the attack on Bahawalpur, on that facility of the Jaish-e-Mohammed in Bahawalpur is, I would imagine, a fitting part of this unfortunate incident. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. With that, we come to the closure of this press briefing. Thank you very much.
Big announcement made by India. The Ministry of External Affairs says Jaish-e-Mohammed was responsible for the death of journalist Daniel Pearl. India is now moving the International Monetary Fund, making its point clear to IMF, to talking to board members, seeking that Pakistan should not get the next tranche of a bailout from the International Monetary Fund. You just heard Vikram Misri. So let's get you both sides of the story. One side, the military response. Pakistan attempted to target multiple cities across our country, and not just military installations, but as Colonel Sophia Qureshi and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh said, they even tried to target civilian installations and civilians in different parts of our country. In response, India hit back, and India has targeted a radar in Pakistan. That's the information that is coming in. Big story. Diplomatically, India is reaching out to the International Monetary Fund that funds should not be made available to Pakistan. India's point has been that Pakistan actually uses those funds for spreading terror, not just in India, but across the world. The point that's also being made, journalist Daniel Pearl, he was doing his job. A Wall Street Journal journalist, Daniel Pearl, he was lured by Omar Saeed Sheikh, kidnapped and killed Remember the manner in which the Pakistani terrorists killed Hindus in Pahalgam, asked them their name, asked them their religion, and then shot them at point-blank range? This is their ideology. This is their mentality. This is not the first time they've done that. They did exactly the same with Daniel Pearl. They lured him. They got him down on his knees. They forced him to confess that he was Jewish. And then they slit his throat. That is how Jaish-e-Mohammed operates. That is that terrorist organization where namaz-e-janaza is attended by the corps commander of Bahawalpur, top generals of the Pakistan army, including the army chief, lays a wreath when terrorists are killed in the Indian missile strike. That is the mindless terrorism that comes from that radical Islamist state sponsor of terror. We've been victims, but even Daniel Pearl was a victim, and that aspect has come out once again. I want to quickly cut across to India Today's Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, as we bring in Akshita Nandgopal, my colleague, into this conversation. And Geeta, from Daniel Pearl's killing, brutal killing, to the Pahalgam killing, it's that same Jaish-e-Mohammed, it's that same Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror, and that is why India is also moving that Pakistan should not get a bailout from the International Monetary Fund.
Well, that's absolutely right. The Indian side, again, making their position very clear. One, like we were saying in the morning itself, when we learned that there is going to be a briefing by the Ministry of External Affairs, Gaurav, that they're going to dispel all the disinformation being spread, not just on social media, source-based information, but their ministers, the information minister himself sitting and blatantly fabricating truths, lying about whether if in Pakistan carried out any action or not. They've come out and very clearly said that the action was carried out, and India's action was yet again, a retaliation to the action carried out by Pakistan. And not just in terms of missiles. We're looking at drone intrusions that were attempted along the whole of LOC and IB from Leh to Sir Creek. 36 locations, 300 to 400 drones, Gaurav. And that's the reason why the Indian side responded and took down one of their air defense systems. The purpose and intent also being spelled out by India, that it was not just to cause damage, it was to test India's air defense systems and for intelligence gathering purposes. So this is escalation, and this is not the conventional escalation that we could talk about in the past. The technology has changed, the ways and means have changed. So the things that Pakistan is employing, or for that matter, India is responding with, are very different from anything that we've seen in the past. And therefore, the Indian side coming out and dispelling all the disinformation that was spread since last evening.
So that detailed press conference there, Geeta, that detailed press conference by India to expose Pakistan's ways and what really happened last night. A couple of aspects that I'd like to focus on here. One, the fact that Pakistan and India's exposed this, of how Pakistan has used civilian aircraft almost as a shield to ensure the IF doesn't hit out at the drones. And so we had to exercise maximum restraint, and also the use of Turkish drones. We're going to be talking about that. Just take a look first at some of the highlights of that briefing.
On the intervening night of 8-9 May 2025, Pakistan military carry out multiple violations of Indian airspace along the entire western border with an intent to target military infrastructure. Pakistan military also resorted to firing of heavy caliber weapons along the line of control. Along the international border and line of control, drone intrusions were attempted from Leh to Sir Creek at 36 locations with approximately 300 to 400 drones. Indian Armed Forces brought down a number of these drones using kinetic and non-kinetic means. Pakistan's irresponsible behavior again came to fore. Pakistan did not close its civil airspace despite it launching a failed unprovoked drone and missile attack on 7th May at 8:30 hours in the evening. Pakistan is using civil airliners as a shield, knowing fully well that its attack on India would elicit a swift air defense response. This is not safe for the unsuspecting civil airliners, including the international flights, which were flying near IB between India and Pakistan. Pakistan also carried out artillery shelling across the line of control using heavy caliber artillery guns and armed drones at Kandhar, Uri, Poonch, Mendhar, Rajouri, Akhnur and Udhampur in Jammu and Kashmir area, which resulted in some losses and injuries to Indian Army personnel. Pakistan Army also suffered major losses in Indian retaliatory fire.
So let's just talk about the one aspect. Gaurav is with me. We've got senior journalist Sandeep Unithan also with us here in our studios. But just putting the focus really, Gaurav, on the fact that, India spoke about a civilian aircraft being used as a shield. How exactly did that happen? What happened last night?
So what happened was Pakistan targeted multiple locations in India. India fired countermeasures, but India could not take the kind of retaliatory action India could have because Pakistan has not closed its airspace for civilian flights. So this flight, an Airbus A320 flying from Dammam to Lahore was flying with passengers in. So India exercised restraint. Had India fired a longer range missile, that civilian aircraft could have been in the line of fire and civilians could have been killed. So Pakistan, as always, uses civilians as a shield. And in this case, it's risking lives of civilian passengers as it sends in drones and aerial, projectiles into our country.
You contrast that, Sandeep, with India. Of course, we've closed off largely all airports in the north and west, keeping in mind this particular threat. You contrast that to Pakistan. So we understand that they timed the aircraft in such a manner to their strikes, essentially. And what this does is, I understand we can't fire back into Pakistani soil. We managed to intercept, but that's it.
Absolutely, Akshita. And that's what the game plan appears to be, that they from there, and retaliation becomes extremely difficult because you cannot target an area which is, filled with civilian passenger aircraft. It would be catastrophic, the consequences for that. But, quickly, one more point that the Foreign Secretary made, Akshita, about Pakistan deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure on our side of the border. They shelled a convent, they killed students, they targeted, other members of that convent, and they've targeted gurdwaras as well. And the Foreign Secretary, I have to agree with what he says. He says this is a new law even for Pakistan, targeting civilian infrastructure, targeting places of worship, convents and the like. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them what he described about using civilian aircraft as shields for what they are doing, striking against us, striking at our civilians all across this 3,000-kilometer boundary.
Yeah, and while they constantly continue to do that, mind you, India, in our response also, we've been very measured and we've ensured that come what may, no matter what level of provocation really Pakistan resorts to, that's where we draw the line. We're not targeting civilian establishments. We're not targeting civilian settlements, come what may. And so despite these kind of provocations, India's been hitting back, countering only by hitting Pakistani military establishment. Just a quick word also from Munish Pandey on the point that was made by the MEA about what's happening along the LOC and the constant shelling come sunset in many parts along the LOC, Munish. That's very, very worrying, the way Pakistan has been resorting to targeting these civilian settlements, most of which now has been evacuated also as a measure now by our forces.
Absolutely, Akshita, and what we saw yesterday in the region of Jammu and nearby areas, that there were constant firing, not only through drones but also artillery firing, heavy shelling from Pakistan's side, and it was not only limited to military establishment. It was targeted through civilian civilian areas also, and that is very worrying because there is a line. Whenever there is a war, there is a line. Whenever there is such provocations also, then there is a line. But Pakistan has seen no line, it seems, and that is why they are not only targeting military establishment but also the civilian areas also. Also, one important point, Akshita, is that they sent more than 500 drones last night, and it becomes very difficult for any military establishment, be it any armed forces, to distinguish between those drones and a civilian aircraft. So India has acted very responsibly. Most of those drones were neutralized, but India could have done much better if that civilian aircraft was not in its way. But India has acted very responsibly, and what we have been given to understand is that most of the drones which were sent in the areas like Amritsar, Gurdaspur, Pathankot, those drones were neutralized successfully by the Indian Air Force.
So we managed to repel any attack by Pakistan, and I'll talk about really what India's counter looked like. We'll talk about that in just a bit, but first listen into some of the highlights of what the Foreign Secretary had to say.
The other point in the same vein is Pakistani claims that they did not target or attack any religious places. You would recall that yesterday I shared with you an incident related to the attack on a Gurdwara in Punch. Instead of owning up to these attacks, Pakistan made the preposterous and outrageous claim that it was the Indian Armed Forces and the Indian Air Force that was targeting cities like Amritsar and trying to put the blame on Pakistan. This is nothing but a desperate attempt by Pakistan to disown its acts of aggression, but it is also true to type in its effort to deceive and mislead the world. It will not succeed. The Gurdwara in Punch in particular was attacked by Pakistan, and some local members of the Sikh community, including a Ragi of the Gurdwara, lost their lives in this incident, as I shared yesterday. As we saw in the Pahalgam attack, Pakistan is again trying desperately to impart a communal hue to the situation with an intention to create discord. Again, we are not surprised. India's steadfast unity in itself is a challenge to Pakistan.
And so that's how the Foreign Secretary really exposed Pakistan, their dirty tricks. Quite expected, really, that they're also using civilians as a shield, targeting civilians in India and then using civilians as a shield as well. But let's also put the focus really on one question, the nature of counter that came in from India last night. Gaurav, what really was that about? Do we have any details of what kind of a counter-strike was launched by India last night?
So India has already made it very clear that India will not escalate, but in case there's any action from Pakistan, there will be a response and a definite response. So the response this morning has been taking out an air defense system of Pakistan. Even on day one, after Pakistan attempted to target multiple installations in India, India had taken out the HQ-16 air defense system, and that was in Lahore. This time again in Pakistan's Punjab, an air defense system has been taken down. Perhaps that's the one at the Okara cantonment, and this would indicate that systematically, India is degrading Pakistan's warfighting capabilities. When you take down a country's air defense system, it's not just the radar that's taken down. Often the missiles that come along with it are also either rendered ineffective, or Pakistan becomes night blind or blind in terms of the ability to respond. So India is systematically degrading Pakistan's warfighting capabilities without escalating.
And by constantly, Sandeep, it seems targeting essentially Pakistan's ability to detect what's coming their way. And when we talk about what's happened in this counter-strike, like Gaurav said, you know, these radars that have been hit, how deep in Pakistan were they?
Oh, well, it wouldn't be deeper than about 50 kilometers because Lahore is very, just across the border from Amritsar. So what, as Gaurav mentioned, what we seem to be doing is to chip away at their capabilities, degrade their capabilities, target their radars. Radars are very, very critical for air defense systems because without radars, missiles are useless, guns are useless. They cannot see anything. If you can't see anything, you can't shoot at anything. So that's what India seems to be doing here, targeting radars, targeting air defense radars, because if and when an Indian retaliation comes, again, it's going to be from the air. It's going to be the Air Force or it's going to be drones. And Pakistan, the fewer radars that Pakistan has, that are operational, the lesser are the chances of it intercepting an Indian airstrike or an Indian drone strike.
Okay, I just want to also right now focus on what's been happening through the last many days, the escalation and the conflict between India and Pakistan. Let's just take a look really at the escalation ladder and where things stand right now. We'll pull out that particular graphic for you and show you where things stand at this point. And there you have it. Essentially, if you look at really the different levels there, At this point, the current state of conflict is at limited battle. Gaurav, what exactly does that mean? And if there's an escalation, let's say tonight, does that mean full-scale war then?
So full-scale war actually would require mobilization of troops on either side, and that troop mobilization hasn't taken place. Of course, India has post-Operation Parakram, or post the attack on the Indian Parliament, where mobilization took about 3 weeks, come up with a new concept called cold start. And cold start meant that you don't have to mobilize your forces, your strike corps. India has one strike corps in Bhopal, another strike corps in Mathura, and by the time they come to the battle area, they form up at battle area, it's already 3 to 4 weeks, and the world doesn't give you time or like that to respond. So then it's too late. And this was as a confidence-building measure with Pakistan. Pakistan has done no confidence-building measures with India. We unilaterally did that in the past. Now with cold start, you have the troops needed for assault already deployed as, integrated battle groups. That means infantry, artillery, armor, engineers, signals, all that is required for battle, to go air defense, to just go into battle as and when required, to the limited VP that you want to capture, the vital asset, vital point, the nodes in the enemy center, and then rest of the army fetches up for you to carry on that campaign. So even that India isn't doing just as yet. If you talk about the escalation ladder, well, Pakistan climbed the escalation ladder when it used terrorists to kill innocents in Pahalgam. We've climbed in terms of responding by taking out their missiles, defense shield. They then tried to respond at multiple civilian and military targets. That's an escalation. If we were to respond similarly, that would be escalation or punitive. We haven't escalated as of now. So that's the situation right now, that India hasn't escalated. And when you look at this escalation ladder...
So we're here right now.
Right now, just a little before limited battle till full-scale war. Because we're not even in limited battle, we're in skirmishes just as yet.
These are skirmishes.
So these are skirmishes, not yet limited battle. Because limited battle would mean extensive engagement. Right now, you're just testing each other.
Do you think so too, Sandeep?
Absolutely.
That we're somewhere between the two and not really at limited battle?
We would be somewhere below this. We would be below limited battle, because that is what Gaurav mentioned. Limited battle would be the cold start doctrine kicking in, shallow strikes, limited ground offensives. So we are somewhere between military preparedness and limited battle. This is what we are doing with our cross-border strikes, what we've done with Operation Sindoor Phase 1 and Phase 2. So that's the situation that we are at right now.
Military preparedness, to me, we seem much about that.
Yes.
It's beyond preparedness now, because you're seeing strikes happening.
So when you're preparing, you're also degrading the enemy before you strike. So you're degrading his war-fighting capabilities. If I may, and Sandeep can bear this out, in war, there's no black and white. There are many areas of grey. And in these areas of grey, military preparedness is when you're degrading his ability to fight. And Sandeep, weigh in on this with me. You're degrading his ability to fight. Before limited battle, there are skirmishes that go on in several sectors. So limited battle also, before limited battle goes to full-scale war, there are sector-wise. War is science. Even when there is a limited battle that's going on, before it goes to full-scale war, Kargil was a limited battle restricted only to Kargil. It did not spread beyond, to the Jammu sector. Or if we come, Sandeep, let's explain it on this map. This is the India map. When you had the 1965 and 71 war, you were engaging all along across all sectors. In 1971, you were not only engaging in these sectors, you were also engaging here in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh from all sides. That was then East Pakistan. So 71 war was full-fledged. Assault operations here, holding operations here. That was full-scale. Kargil was limited only to this. It did not even escalate from there to Punjab, to Rajasthan, to Gujarat.
But that's the difference from then to now. My point is that right now we're seeing essentially conflict along this entire stretch. So then how do you define that?
Because that conflict is the troop movement. See, when conflict happens, our tanks will be going across, our soldiers will be going across. They would try and come across, and we would be destroying them here. So this is where conflict happens, when we have, of course, started bombing them here.
And there are jets here too. So then that's my question, because you've got in Bhuj reports of a strike. You've got reports in Rajasthan as well.
Akshita, the thing is that, as Gaurav was mentioning, that the military has not mobilized fully like they did in 1971 and they did in 2001. When Parakram happened, you had one of the largest deployments of the Indian military since 1971, where you had the Indian military deployed all along the 3,000 kilometer long border, and of course the LC with Pakistan. You had 3 strike corps positioned there, ready to, strike deep inside Pakistan. Of course, there is the first strike corps came. This is 21 strike corps from Bhopal that was positioned here in Rajasthan. Movement across, all along the border, where they're poised. When the signal is given, all the strike corps move. All 3 strike corps move into Pakistan. They start doing battle with the enemy. So that's a very, very critical component of the land battle, which is when the military, India's military mobilizes fully ready to strike. That hasn't happened yet. So what we are seeing is we're looking at an alert all across the border. We're looking at skirmishes. You can call them skirmishes, air-to-air skirmishes, long-range missiles being fired, drones being fired. This is, this is the first drone war of India and Pakistan that we are seeing over the last 48 hours or so. So it's actually we are several rungs away from even a full-scale mobilization of the soldiers.
So what will it take? And I just want to bring it back to this, Gaurav and Sandeep. You know, where right now you're saying somewhere between this. At what step of what Pakistan does do you think it becomes limited battle? The word war has been used a lot right now. And both of you are telling me we can't just use that at this point.
No, because it hasn't reached that stage just as yet. Right now, both sides are testing each other. We are testing them. We're like, at times, poking them to tell them we're degrading your war-fighting capability. They are trying, they're not succeeding. If there are some things, if they've sent in 500 drones, often we are being told that those drones are the cheap Chinese drone without ammunition. So they are making us spoof of our very expensive ammunition. Some of them, of course, got thankfully made in India, so we don't have to spend precious foreign exchange. But then we are poofing off. We did poof off quite a bit of ammunition to neutralize the threat. Yesterday, it was essential because we didn't know it could have come in and destroyed any of our civilians. What we could have done, had we wanted to escalate, was then send in similar 500 drones across and targeted them. But they would have seen that as escalation. And we are still giving Pakistan an opportunity. So the enemy is not the people of Pakistan. The enemy is that military jihad complex represented by General Asim Munir, Hafiz Muhammad Saeed, that Maulana of terror Masood Azhar, and a lot more. So we want them to be neutralized by the people of Pakistan, if not, we are willing to do that job for them.
And what's been very clear, and this is the message that the ME also has put out, Mr. Vikram Misri has said very clearly that our strikes and our response has been non-escalatory, which is why I'm asking at this point, if this were to climb up in the escalation ladder to a limited battle, what's the one provocation or the strike or the attempt that Pakistan makes that will make that scale up, Sandeep?
Well, Akshita, it has to be a very high visibility terror attack of the kind that Pakistan has been carrying out in the last 25 years. It has to be a very large number of civilians that they've killed like they did, or attack a very symbolic target like Parliament in 2001, 26/11, Mumbai. It could be another, Pulwama or Pahalgam, a suicide attack, God forbid. If any of these were to happen, that would be considered an escalation, and India would have no option but to mobilize its forces and go in for, moving forces for the cold start option. With the cold start is shallow military strikes, using the ground component, using the land forces, striking across all fronts with Pakistan.
But if I may, before it even comes to limited battle to full scale, right now what we can also do, and it's very interesting, again, war is science, One, there is, first you have an aim and there is maintenance of aim. If aim is, look at Pakistan, it is such a narrow country. From north to south, within 2 hours you can cover it by air. From here to here, it's very, very narrow. So if you want to squeeze this country, you just start deploying your navy closer here. And this is just 1,000 odd kilometers that you can completely put your ships here, put your ships here, put your ships here, put your ships here, and start live firing exercises. So no oil will come to Karachi, no oil will come to Gwadar. Jiwani, Gwadar, Pasni, Karachi, Ormara, these are the 5 major ports in Pakistan. You blockade him, he will choke to death and surrender without fighting a war.
That will be the final step, is what everyone's saying. If we go ahead and deploy our navy, it's then going ahead and opening a new front against Pakistan.
Absolutely.
And you essentially cripple Pakistan then.
Well, it's already begun. If you look at
it's already begun.
You are seeing exercises.
We are seeing
here
the navy being deployed in the North Arabian Sea, because the navy has issued no times for extensive missile firing exercises all along the North Arabian Sea. And that indicates that if there were missile missile firing of the ranges that have been shown, that would mean a large number of ships. We are not giving you numbers, but there are a large number of naval warships out there in the North Arabian Sea, even as we speak, ready to open that maritime front if Pakistan chooses to escalate.
So right now, the distance between Indian Navy here and the Pakistan Navy here, they are carrying out their exercises, we are carrying out our exercises, and the difference here is barely 35 nautical miles.
Absolutely.
That's about 70, 80 kilometers at the most.
It's a little over visual range, and all of the fleets are actually parked out there because they're far out at sea.
Yeah.
We don't kind of get the visibility. The Navy rarely gets the kind of visibility that it should get, but this is the situation as it's unfolding in the North Arabian Sea.
This is happening right now, even as we
Pakistani
speak.
warships,
The
Indian warships are exercising right there. They're conducting live missile
So almost
tests.
eyeball to eyeball there too.
In this location, so their attempt is they will
So the
keep
Pakistan
firing
naval
here.
fleet is here.
Yeah, they will keep firing here so that our ships don't go and start attacking Karachi like they did in 1971.
Or even come within missile firing range.
Yeah.
So the idea is to, keep
And
the
we're
Indian Navy
maintaining a
down
certain
south.
distance as
We're
well.
maintaining a distance, but they have asked for, they've issued NOTAMs to ensure that we don't come within missile firing range of either Karachi, any of these ports, or even targets in the hinterland. So they've created something like a ADIZ, like the kind that China has created around Taiwan. So
Air Defense Identification Zone.
By issuing these NOTAMs, saying that, listen, we are firing over here, so everyone stay out. All warships, all merchant ships, all aircraft stay out of this area because we are firing missiles.
But that also starts bleeding Pakistan already because insurance costs will go up. If there are live firing missile exercises happening, no civilian ship will go to Karachi to refuel. No food, fuel, any of those resources will come in via ship, and Pakistan anyway will be in trouble.
So India's holding back here. Like you said, we're here right now.
Yep.
What stops us from going ahead and escalating it here?
When we want to, I'm sure we can.
That's an option that India retains.
But it will be the last resort.
It will be one of the final resorts. If we were to go out for an all-out shooting war, the Navy would definitely join in the action.
Okay, so what we're seeing right now is, as Gaurav and Sandeep put it, not even a limited battle, just below that. And hopefully it doesn't escalate into a limited battle. That, of course, it's up to Pakistan completely to decide. But I want you to take a look at our next report. We've done a very interesting comparison of the Pakistan Army's tactics. And I'm sure Sandeep and Gaurav would like to pitch in on that right after this report on how the strikes, the failed strikes that we saw last night, very, very similar to how essentially Hamas tried to strike Israel. Take a look at this report and then we'll talk about that in a bit.
Pakistani attacks thwarted again. Its plot to bleed civilian areas with drones and crude missiles foiled again. But the repeated attacks by Pakistan at multiple locations has a pattern. Using chilling modus operandi of a terrorist organization, this style has been copied from Hamas. Short-range, locally assembled rockets were launched by Pakistan in quick succession to target dense civilian areas, a chapter exactly copied from Hamas' playbook. Pakistan, just like Hamas, aimed to exhaust Indian air defense system with multiple projectiles. But just like Israel's Iron Dome, India's S-400 air defense system repelled the nefarious attempt.
The Hamas attack on Israel seems to have inspired Pakistan. First, the attack in Pahalgam and then targeting of civilians. This is a very clear imprint. Secondly is about how targeting of civilians, especially living in line of control, a style adopted by Hamas, targeting innocent civilians. Then thereafter, what we know is the meeting of masterminds, especially Hamas leaders meeting not just top Lashkar commanders, but terrorists right in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Something Pakistan has supported all along are not just terror launchpad, but big terror organizations and are being safe havens there. But effectively handled well and fended off at line of control and in hinterland by Indian forces.
Pakistan had recently hosted Hamas terrorists at Jaish headquarters Bahawalpur, which has now been reduced to rubble. It has been primary haven of terrorists and its role is in multiple terror strikes across the world. Is Pakistan's rogue army now directly copying activities of terror groups? Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, so let's talk about those images. Let's put out a direct comparison, and I want Gaurav and Sandeep to weigh in on this. This is Israel being targeted by Hamas. So you see the images very similar, essentially, to what we saw last night. And that's because essentially a barrage of rockets fired at India, and all of it intercepted by a rather robust air defense system. Gaurav, you were there. Yep. You were there in Israel when this was happening. And when you saw the images last night, was it a sense of deja vu? Because it seems to be the exact same strategy to me.
Oh, absolutely. And what Hamas does, it uses those very cheap rockets, often, pipeline that's used for water. Those GI pipes, they are used, explosives are filled, there's a charge filled in it, fins attached, a cone attached and launched. It's almost like a country-made mortar. Absolutely. So that's what the Hamas terrorists do, and they fire a barrage, zook, 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 in quick succession. And Israel has to fire very expensive Iron Dome missiles. So, these rockets that cost a couple of $100, just a couple of $100, and an Iron Dome missile which costs many thousands of dollars, which is millions of dollars that's going in. That is how Hamas was able to bleed Israel. And Israel is a rich country. Yeah. India is a developing country. So there, Pakistan is trying exactly the same textbook, making us spend expensive, either the S-400 systems, which is very expensive, 39,000 crore rupees for 5 systems, or fortunately, we have the Made in India Akash. Yes. So when that system fires back and neutralizes the threat, that's a defensive mechanism. You also need to be offensive. Through your weapon locating radars, triangulate the place where that fire is coming from and fire back immediately, destroy those threats. At source, what you did in Muridke, what you did in Balakot, what you did in Bahawalpur is the only way to punish Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror.
So
isn't it, Sandeep?
If we're seeing this as a strategy, as Gaurav put it, Sandeep, to kind of ensure that we keep using our air defense system, and so therefore ensure that you cripple us in that way, do you think that in the next few days, then Pakistan is going to continue this of firing rockets non-stop?
Absolutely. Either that or drones. This seems to be their playbook, that they want to swarm our air defense system with cheap drones. And we've seen drones of all varieties being used.
So if it's not costing Pakistan anything?
It doesn't cost them as much, but as the MEA spokesperson said, they've used everything from Turkish drones, which are top-of-the-line equipment, right down to the kind of drones that we saw that are used, the Chinese DJI Mavic kind of drones, a small quadcopter kind of drone. So they're using everything to swamp our AD systems, to light up our AD systems, to target our AD systems, and also, as Gaurav mentioned, to force us to poof off ammunition so that we run out of ammunition and they can kind of attack.
Then how do you counter that, though, then? Because we have to protect.
Hit them at source. Look, India has always been restrained. I covered the Kargil war, so did Sandy in 1999. Every time India has been very restrained. Kargil, then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee did not order the Air Force, to cross the LC and hit terror at source or hit Pakistan Army at source. The Narendra Modi government is very different. They ordered the Air Force to go hit Balakot and hit terror through missiles at source. You need to do that. That's the only way. Instead of you bleeding, the enemy must bleed. If he bleeds harder, he's a poor country. He cannot sustain it. Bleed him till he stops using terror as an instrument of state policy.
The current approach of India, would you call it restraint? Because there has been talk that, we're being non-escalatory. We are responding, essentially, to Pakistan. They hit us, we hit them back.
Absolutely.
So do you think we're still being restrained?
We are still very restrained, especially in the face of very grave provocation. If you take the Foreign Secretary's words, he said that, they've hit new lows in the battle that the Pakistanis are fighting because they are targeting civilians, they're targeting places of worship, they're targeting temples, they're targeting gurudwaras, and they're targeting convents.
Convents as well.
This is, so, literally, as I was telling Gaurav earlier, the mask seems to have fallen off the Pakistan military. There is no distinction between the Pakistan military now and the terrorists that they rear. And that we saw in full evidence when you saw that state funeral for a terrorist with a coffin wrapped in the Pakistan flag. Unprecedented event.
And the chief of the army staff laying a wreath. Can you imagine Pakistan army chief and the corps commander present there at the funeral and laying a wreath, and army men in uniform standing there for the namaz-e-janaza of a terrorist. That just shows they're brothers in arms.
Do you see then that the next step would also be trying to get terrorists to infiltrate through trying to carry out terror strikes at the same time that the army is firing these rockets?
It happened this morning. 7 terrorists of Jaish-e-Mohammed were killed trying to infiltrate in the Samba sector. And, the tragedy is that Pakistan, costs need to be imposed. The manner in which government of India is doing right now, reaching out to the International Monetary Fund.
Correct.
Don't give them the next tranche of the $2 billion that they require. If they have no money, they can't wage a terror war against India. So that is where the world needs to unite. But, it's a long-drawn battle. Look at Israel. Israel continues to gather international opinion. The world, to a very large extent, until October 7, was siding with Hamas, and many still continue to do so. Similarly, there are countries that are siding with Pakistan, despite it being a radical Islamist state sponsor of terror.
Is that disappointing, though, that we haven't, despite seeing the manner of strikes that have been happening and the clear evidence written all through which we've been discussing of how, there's this clear tango of the Pakistan army and terrorism, that there hasn't been a strong response, really, that's come in right now from the international community. Everyone's talking of de-escalate rather than calling out Pakistan. Do you think that's disappointing in a sense?
It is disappointing in a sense, Akshita, but the fact is that as Gaurav and me, we've been covering terrorism for more than 25 years, and this has been the playbook all along. It is your terrorism versus our terrorism. They condemn terrorism only when it affects them in Europe and in America, not in when it affects us, in the way people were killed in Mumbai, for instance. And that was the first time, incidentally, that the world woke up to global terrorism because foreigners were deliberately targeted.
Correct.
They asked them for their passports, and depending on their nationalities, they were gunned down. If they were Americans, they were shot in the head. If they're Singaporeans, they were shot in the head. And interestingly, if they were Turkish, they were allowed to go away scot-free. So this is the kind of targeted killings that Pakistan's state-sponsored terror machinery has been doing over several decades. So this is the short answer to what you asked me, Akshita, is this is our battle to fight. There is no point in us looking for international support. There will be support to a certain extent, but finally, if you have to go in and defang the terrorists and the terror factories, we will have to do it ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
The profiling and killing, exactly what happened in Pahalgam as well, where instead they started targeting people based on their religion.
Look at Daniel Pearl. He was a Jewish journalist working in Pakistan. I mean, he took a grave risk, but that's what journalists do all the time. They report the story. Omar Saeed Sheikh, he lured him, took him out, and then made him go down on his knees and then slit his throat because he was Jewish. So he killed him because of his religion.
Well, he beheaded him as well. And they filmed the act. They filmed the act and then they broadcast that video to show that they had, murdered a Jewish person.
And despite all of this, you still don't see that kind of global solidarity that perhaps there should be against Pakistan. Put that pressure on them and make them answer for it so that they're forced to go ahead and also stop breeding this kind of terror. Gaurav, Sandeep, thank you very much for joining me here in the studios. I know it's been a long day, a long 24 hours for them, and they continue their marathon coverage in some time from now. But thank you for joining me. I'll bring in Kamaljit Sandhu also on this broadcast for the latest updates, and focusing particularly on the point that the MEA made, which is a big expose of what Pakistan really stands for, Kamaljit, which is of how civilian aircraft was going around exactly at the time when Pakistan was firing those drones and missiles at us.
Well, absolutely. The sinister design of Pakistan is very well exposed now. And remember, even though they have claimed deniability any role, but that's the old tactics as far as Pakistan is concerned. There are safe havens of terror organization, be it Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and even Osama bin Laden being found in Pakistan. So all this really points out towards how the Pakistan ISI, the Pakistan Army, one, they have indulged in low intensity conflict for past 3 decades. But remember, as far as the government is concerned, they have had a threshold, and that is why what we've seen is there are ramifications, be it Uri attack, Pulwama attack, and now the Pahalgam attack, which has taken place with terror organization with its imprints in Pakistan, launching cross-border terror attacks. So in that particular sense, what is also seen is the Hamas-style attack, where how Hamas in October 2023 had attacked Israeli parts both launching civilian as well as military strikes. But here also what we see is that the civilians are being targeted, not just in Pahalgam but across line of control and international border, where what we've seen is heavy artillery fire. We've also seen the magnitude with which the Pakistani army has launched and surveillance drones being sent. But remember, as far as India is concerned, which is superior in terms of military might in every senses, there has been thwarting and neutralizing of all these threats coming from across the border.
No, we've been very measured in our response. That's very clear at this point, because even as you've been seeing these constant strikes by Pakistan, we've hit back in our counter one of their radars. And therefore, we continue to maintain we will not target civilian establishments. The IAF, as the MEA also told us, has shown great restraint last night when Pakistan was resorting to the strikes because of the civilian aircraft that was hovering around in that particular area. Kamalji, thanks very much for joining us with those details. I was referring earlier to the fact that there seems to be a lack of global solidarity and messaging to Pakistan. Today, in just about 1 hour from now, at 7:30 Indian Standard Time, is when the International Monetary Fund will take a decision on whether they're going to be giving the bailout package to Pakistan. Pakistan, of course, has been in financial doldrums. The economy is a mess, and they've been seeking money from the IMF. They want a big, fat loan. Pakistan is facing a perfect storm of financial collapse and rising tensions with India, which is why they need it more than ever. India has been pushing, saying do not give a country that harbors terrorists a bailout package.
It was pure chaos on the streets of Lahore Thursday morning. Sirens went off and people ran out of their homes as a series of loud explosions were heard in the city. The incident comes just a day after Operation Sindoor destroyed terror pads in Pakistan and the POK. And reports trickle in of a swarm drone attack on Lahore's air defense systems. Clearly, Pakistan's confidence is shaken. For the first time in several years, trading was suspended at the Karachi Stock Exchange after the KSE30 index plunged more than 7% in trade today. Investors are feeling the pain as well. The Karachi Stock Exchange was at 36,403 at its close on 22nd of April, the day of the Pahalgam massacre. By 6th of May, it had fallen 5%. Operation Sindoor led to a bloodbath on KSE, with the index falling more than 6% in intraday trade. Finally, it closed with a fall of 3%. Today again, the sell-off was deeper, with the index plunging nearly 9% in trade. Pakistan's fragile economy is ill-equipped to face any hostilities with India. Investors started selling stocks immediately after Pahalgam attacks, and for the first time in the past few years, trading was suspended. Pakistan is staring into a financial abyss. With foreign reserves of barely $15 billion and a balance of payments, crisis looming, all eyes are now on the 9th of May, meeting of the IMF, where its executive board will decide whether to approve a crucial $1.3 billion tranche as part of a broader $7 billion bailout. Pakistan's key economic indicators continue to flash red. Its GDP growth is expected at just 2.6% this year. Its inflation is above 5%, hurting household budgets.
Let's get you big breaking news that's coming in from Delhi, where the three service chiefs are meeting with Prime Minister Modi. This is the big breaking news that's coming in right now. The meeting is happening at the Prime Minister's residence, and keeping in mind all that's been happening along the border, you are essentially seeing this meeting perhaps as a briefing also of what's taking place right now. Remember that the three service chiefs had met earlier with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, also with the Chief of Defence Staff. That was a briefing that took place in the morning. Now, The three service chiefs, the tri-service chiefs also meeting with Prime Minister Modi, and all that's been happening really with Pakistan and the conflict, the strikes versus the counter-strikes that have been taking place. Our forces have been doing a tremendous job of repelling, of thwarting every attempt by Pakistan to target military establishments, to target civilian establishments. All of that has been repelled. And so now our forces are also briefing the Prime Minister on exactly what's the situation currently and the next course of action. Let me bring in Aishwarya Paliwal for more details on this. Aishwarya, that meeting currently underway. You had the three service chiefs meeting with the Defence Minister earlier and now with the Prime Minister.
Well, you know, very crucial meeting, let me tell you, Akshita, and that's the spot where I'm standing. I'm standing right outside Prime Minister Narendra Modi's house. And what we are seeing now, the chief of the three defence forces, all of them have just gone inside. They will now tell Prime Minister Narendra Modi what exactly has transpired. In fact, let me tell you, Prime Minister Modi has been given every information over the past 24 hours, what exactly transpired. We even heard in the briefing there, every detail has now been given out, what to do next, what all preparations need to be done. And Prime Minister will be told about it by the three chiefs. All of them just barely a couple of minutes ago went inside. A very crucial meeting will take place. From what I can tell you, Akshita, the meeting will go on for at least an hour. Prime Minister Modi will be briefed about what has been done so far and what next needs to be done, the kind of preparation that we will see, the chart for that, the planning for that will be done in the next 1 hour.
Okay, we'll track all the big takeaways of that particular meeting. But so far, the message from the government and the Prime Minister has been full freedom to our forces to retaliate in the manner they deem fit, when, where, how, all of that, full freedom to our forces. We'll track that very closely. Let's cut across to more breaking news coming in. Another day that Pakistan again has resorted to ceasefire violations, opening fire along the LOC, and once again, it's the worst hit area of Poonch that is seeing heavy shelling being reported by the Pakistan Army. We also understand in Uri is where we're seeing ceasefire violations being reported. At this point, remember, in Uri and Poonch, where the civilian settlements are, is where we're seeing maximum shelling by the Pakistan Army. They intend to target civilian settlements. They want to target innocents. And we've been seeing this since April 22nd, since the Pahalgam terror attack. We'll get you a report also right now. What's the situation there? But heavy shelling has already begun with Pakistan resorting to ceasefire violations. This has been essentially what they've been doing for the last many weeks. And unfortunately, as a result of them firing and also resorting to shelling in villages in Poonch and Uri along the LOC, we've been seeing maximum civilian casualties, the death toll at 15 plus now. Just from the last few weeks, there are children, senior citizens, all of whom have been affected. There are many pockets here along the LOC where our forces have also ensured full evacuation because it's no longer safe for these civilians to be based in these areas, with Pakistan clearly doing whatever it takes to target civilians along the entire border. So while we are reporting right now on the situation along the line of control, we can confirm for you that heavy shelling has been reported in Uri. Now, every single day, we've been seeing these kind of provocations by Pakistan, the Pakistan Army resorting to shelling as soon as the sun goes down. And now in Uri, there's been confirmation that there's been shelling being reported in this entire stretch as well, in the villages in Uri particularly. All right, let's move on and talk about how the political tensions between India and Pakistan has also compelled the BCCI to go ahead and take the step of suspending the IPL, putting the brakes on cricket's richest leagues, the Indian Premier League, for a week. Now, next week, we'll know exactly whether the IPL will resume or not. But the message is very clear. The BCCI says that at such a sensitive time, we can't be playing cricket. More details coming up.
देखिए बीसीसीआई ने यह निर्णय लिया है कि आईपीएल को अभी फिलहाल 1 सप्ताह के लिए स्थगित किया गया है। उसके बाद जो स्थिति है उसका जायजा लेके सरकार से विचार विमर्श करके जो हमारे स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, फ्रेंचाइजी और ब्रॉडकास्टर, इन सबसे बात करके नए शेड्यूल की घोषणा की जाएगी।
इस वक्त आईपीएल चल रही थी और काफ़ी अच्छी चल रही थी, बहुत सारी प्रतिभा जो है उभर के आ रही थी, लेकिन अचानक बंद हो गया है। तो आप भी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में थे, कितना इमरजेंसी ये रहता है ऐसा?
नहीं, आज जो मैंने वो देखा है प्रेस रिलीज की 7 दिन के लिए सस्पेंडेड हुआ है, तो बीसीसीआई ज़रूर इसको कंप्लीट करेगा। कोविड के समय 2021-20 में जब इतना प्रॉब्लम था तभी भी आईपीएल कंप्लीट हुआ था। बीसीसीआई इतनी एफिशिएंट है कि ये ज़रूर कंप्लीट करेंगे। 7 दिन का ब्रेक है, 7 दिन एक्सटेंड भी हो जाएगा टूर्नामेंट।
तब आप थे, हम लोग जानते हैं कोविड के टाइम में इमरजेंसी सिचुएशन आप देखे हो, तो इसको कैसे टैकल किया जाता है या आपका क्या सलाह रहेगी?
कोविड जैसा सिचुएशन हो ही नहीं सकता। और कोविड में मैचेस हुए हैं और इंडियन गवर्नमेंट मिनिस्ट्री जैसे इंस्ट्रक्शन देगी, बीसीसीआई उसी हिसाब से काम करेगा।
And meanwhile, in another massive setback for Pakistan, remember that the PSL was called off because of the conflict between India and Pakistan, but they wanted to actually shift this out of Pakistan and to UAE. What we're hearing from our sources is that the UAE is likely to reject Pakistan's plea to host the PSL there. Pakistan had sought that Dubai be the venue for PSL, but sources telling us that the UAE is likely to shut the door on the Pakistan Cricket Board's plan of hosting PSL in Dubai. Another setback for Pakistan. It really shows you what their standing is right now in the world order. The fact that UAE has also chosen to dismiss their plea for the PSL to be held in Dubai. That's all we have time for on this edition of Super 6. On the other side of a very, very short break, we continue getting you all the updates, the latest on the India-Pakistan conflict. We'll be getting you ground reports on the situation currently along the India-Pakistan border. On the other side, very short.
Edge 60 Pro, the edge of excellence.
There is no point in us looking for international support. There will be support to a certain extent, but finally, if you have to go in and defang the terrorists and the terror factories, we will have to do it ourselves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, the profiling and killing, exactly what happened in Pahalgam as well,
yes,
where instead they started targeting people based on their religion.
Look at Daniel Pearl. He was a Jewish journalist working in Pakistan. I mean, he took a grave risk, but that's what journalists do all the time. They report the story. Omar Saeed Sheikh, he lured him, took him out, and then made him go down on his knees and then slit his throat because he was Jewish. So he killed him because of his religion.
Well, he beheaded him as well. And they filmed the act. They filmed the act and then they broadcast that video to show that they had, murdered a Jewish person.
And despite all of this, you still don't see that kind of global solidarity that perhaps there should be against Pakistan. Put that pressure on them and make them answer for it so that they're forced to go ahead and also stop breeding this kind of terror. Gaurav, Sandeep, thank you very much for joining me here in the studios. I know it's been a long day, a long 24 hours for them, and they continue their marathon coverage in some time from now. But thank you for joining me. I'll bring in Kamaljeet Sandhu also on this broadcast for the latest updates, and focusing particularly on the point that the MEA made, which is a big expose of what Pakistan really stands for, Kamaljeet, which is of how civilian aircraft was going around exactly at the time when Pakistan was firing those drones and missiles at us.
Well, absolutely. The sinister design of Pakistan is very well exposed now. And remember, even though they have claimed deniability and role, but that's an old tactics as far as Pakistan is concerned. There are safe havens of terror organization, be it Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and even Osama bin Laden being found in Pakistan. So all this really points out towards how the Pakistan ISI, the Pakistan Army, one, they have indulged in low-intensity conflict for past 3 decades. But remember, as far as the government is concerned, and they have had a threshold, and that is why what we've seen is there are ramifications, be it Uri attack, Pulwama attack, and now the Pahalgam attack, which has taken place with terror organization with its imprints in Pakistan, launching cross-border terror attacks. So in that particular sense, what is also seen is the Hamas-style attack, where how Hamas in October 2023 had attacked Israeli parts, both launching civilian as well as military strikes. But here also what we see is that the civilians are being targeted, not just in Pahalgam, but across line of control and international border, where what we've seen is heavy artillery fire. We've also seen the magnitude with which the Pakistani army has launched and surveillance drones being sent. But remember, as far as India is concerned,